All right, guys, let's talk a little NFL football. And this segment brought to you by our great sponsors, Crow Real Estate and Auction, Rivals Tap House and Grill, Nelson House Funeral Home, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, the ALS Association, and Z92.5 The Castle. First of all, right out of the gate, I know, Matt, you have a long memory. You remember when I was calling for Matt Campbell's head or Coach Campbell's head.
Yeah.
But I've turned it around. I mean, I really like the guy. I really like what he has put together. And despite the mistakes in some of his game management earlier this season, the team stuck with him and played hard, and they played their butts off in that last game.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for we've said it over and over and over. This team plays hard. This team plays hard. But when you're sitting here at 2-13-1 in the last game of the season against the backups with the Packers, they're clearly not really playing for anything. You got a bunch of backups with the Lions. I think there's something to be said about this team stuck together because, I was kind of like taking some shots on Twitter. There was a lot of people saying that these Lions, they don't even know how to tank properly because we know if they would have lost, they would have got the number one pick. And, people are saying like they can't even tank properly. Like this is just what the Lions do, but they're out there fighting because Dan Campbell's not laying down. He's trying to establish a culture. He's trying to show that he can actually be a head coach. There's a bunch of backups in there and rookies trying to prove that they can play in the NFL. And, they could have just laid down and been like, who cares? Let's just let Jordan Love go out there in the second half and beat us. But so to that point, I think there's something to be said about Dan Campbell keeping these guys together and actually playing some pretty good football. Like they actually played pretty well.
Well, I'm glad you said Dan Campbell and corrected my Matt Campbell mistake.
I think everyone messes up and says Matt Campbell. You're a liar if you've never accidentally said that. I don't understand why it's annoyed me all year. Maybe I'm just narcissistic and just don't want to root for the Lions, or maybe it's just because you guys are a little bit too heavy on the Kool-Aid, which I don't even understand why people are drinking the Kool-Aid. They beat a Packers team that was all backups. Why are we acting like this was some like rousing victory to end the season?
Because it's the Packers, Campbell. Jared. It's the Packers.
It is. I get that, but there's a difference between they're an entirely different team if Aaron Rodgers is playing and if he's not. And I know he played in the first half, but it was basically a walkthrough. I love the trick plays. I love the fact that I will say they haven't quit, but it's pretty rare that a team does quit. I mean, we just saw the Jacksonville Jaguars season from hell. And yet last week of the season, they're beating a team that needed to win to get into the playoffs. And you have like the team like the Raiders, another season from hell. They didn't quit. These guys are professionals. They don't quit. So if the one thing you're hanging your hat on with Campbell is, hey, the guys don't quit on him, I think that's a problem because no one quits in the NFL. This isn't college football. And the fact that he's just been getting outcoached in the X's and O's this entire year is the one thing that keeps it's like the bad thing, it's like a black spot on his resume. Yeah, he's a good coach, knows how to rally the troops, knows how to, get some momentum rolling in a franchise. But at the end of the day, when you're a head football coach, you have to know football pretty well. And I just still question his football IQ. So I just can't overlook that. The couple positives we do have, obviously Sewell's a great offensive lineman. Amon-Ra St. Brown, this came from nowhere and is a stud. I love him. But other than that, I really don't know what you hang your hat on with this team other than they, quote unquote, play hard. Every team plays hard.
No,
well, I look at it.
There's something to that. You're onto something.
You are, but I mean, look, we had Patricia there, right? And now we got Campbell. Okay, who are you going to pick between those two?
Right.
Obviously, it's Campbell. The other thing is, I don't care what you say. It was against the Packers and it was against the backups in the second half. But to watch that team celebrate at the end, because they won, I mean, that says a lot to me. I know you're saying they're professionals, but they were truly excited to get that last touchdown and win that game. And, we talked about what this team needs. Well, first of all, they need Jeff Okudah to live up to his draft status and come back healthy. Then they need to draft 2 or 3 studs this next upcoming draft, whether it's defensive end or whether it's somebody else on offense, but they got to get it right in this next draft. And, we talked about Campbell, some of his game management mistakes. Well, I'll tell you one damn thing. He didn't blow it like the Chargers coach did last night. Holy cow. That kept him right out of the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole scenario was wild where they could have just tied and nothing would happen. And
And
now
the
they're out
Raiders
of
were
the
going
playoff.
to do it.
That
Right.
would have been nuts. The fact that that almost actually happened, I feel like people aren't talking about that enough.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of funny, like when you'd read the probability, like, hey, if these teams happen to tie, they'll both get in the playoffs and the Steelers will get screwed. But we never really thought it was actually going to play out where they could
Right.
legitimately tie. And the fact
Yeah.
that they went to overtime, it was just crazy. But in terms of the Lions, you nailed it. It all comes down to draft day. That's what this season has been building to. You know, I'm not going to get upset about us being the number 2 pick compared to the 1. There's not one franchise quarterback waiting for us with the number 1 selection. They need to draft some studs with the big trade of Matthew Stafford. This is where we cash in, is this upcoming draft.
Got to.
So we need to draft some studs. We need to draft some immediate, playmakers. I guess what is like our barometer for success next year? I feel like some people are throwing out playoffs. This isn't going to be a playoffs team, even if we draft Derwin James in the first round. This is not a playoff team next year. So what is the successful season?
I mean, the one thing is the Bears just fired their head coach, so kind of don't know what's going on there. Hopefully not Jim Harbaugh. The Vikings just fired their head coach, so who knows what's going on there. Aaron Rodgers might be off to Pittsburgh or Denver or who knows. So like in a way you could almost say like the Lions could be contenders if they make the right signings. I mean, I think personally, I think like 5 or 6 wins. If they can get up to 5 or 6 wins. One thing too, like they just got to get healthy. Like Frank Ragnow, they're basically all pro center, didn't play all year. So hopefully he's back healthy to go along with Sewell. Like you mentioned, you could have a solid offensive line. Jeff Okudah, like you mentioned, I still hate that draft pick, but they've got him. So hopefully he turns into a decent player. Hawkinson, kind of got banged up. So hopefully he can come back healthy. They've got pieces. And like you mentioned, St. Brown looks like a fantastic player. I don't know if he's like a number 1 receiver. So maybe they do that in the first round. They try and go after some like stud receiver or, sign some free agent. But, they've got some pieces. And I think like to your point about Dan Campbell, I'm not like totally sold on him. I'm not like all of a sudden this dude is Bill Belichick. I'm just impressed that he kept the guys together. I do think one big thing that we've mentioned before on here, they need an offensive coordinator. They did officially fire Anthony Lynn this year. I'm surprised he was even still on the payroll. That must have been like super awkward. But, so they need to get an offensive coordinator. It's fun watching Dan Campbell do these like ridiculous trick plays and fake punts and going for it on 4th down the most times in NFL history. It's all fun when you're 3-13. If they're actually in playoff contention and he's out there like doing all this crazy stuff, I think people would be pretty upset. So I think you said it before, Jared. I think if he could go into like the head coach, mentor, motivator role, and then, still oversee stuff, I feel like that's his bread and butter. But, they need to improve the roster. Yeah. We all know that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, there's still a lot of work to be done. I'm rooting for this guy. We're all rooting for him. I wouldn't say it was a horrible season. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it's probably the most enjoyable 3-win team I've ever seen in my life. Every week was a new roller coaster, whether it was good or bad. Yeah. I'm going to throw this out there real quick, and maybe I'm just overreacting about something that's not a big deal. I hate that the season was 17 games this year. Maybe it's just because we're all creatures of habit and we hate change. It felt like it was a super long year. It felt like a lot more players were getting injured than normal, and that part probably was partially due to like just the COVID guys being suspended for COVID or whatever. But I just hated it. I felt like it ruined fantasy football. The season felt weird. The fantasy football playoffs, like a lot of guys were resting during it. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown ended up being like the most valuable player when playoffs came around, just because they were still like trying to gun it and throw the ball all over the yard. I don't know. I hated the fact that they extended the season. No one was asking for it. If you were going to extend it to 17 weeks, maybe just 2 bye weeks, not what we dealt with this year. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I hated it. I mean, go back to 16 games. It was perfect the way it was.
I know Ted's feelings. That week 18 was fun. There were some good games.
100%. I mean, do you want still have 4 exhibition games, or you just want to have 16 games scheduled with 2 byes? I could get that too. But this week 18, I mean, this weekend was one of my favorite weekends this whole year in the NFL. It had everything capped off by that Chargers Raiders game, which still blows my mind. I mean, were you guys watching that? Were you guys watching that live at all?
Yes. I had my
Unbelievable.
buddy actually called me and basically told me to turn it on because the last time I checked the score, they were down by like 2 scores, the Chargers.
Right.
My buddy called me at like midnight, said, "Hey, you got to turn this thing on. Like it's an overtime. It might actually end in a tie."
Right.
I really wish it would have ended that way because I would have loved to have seen Justin Herbert. He's just a classic gunslinger.
Oh, he
Like
can
those
throw
fourth
it.
down conversions down the stretch. It was like something out of a movie watching that unfold. So it's a shame that they're not in the playoffs.
Yeah, especially because I mean the Steelers are cool, especially the old school Steelers, but especially because the Steelers got in over them,
Yeah.
and
Right.
we get to see Ben Roethlisberger limp around the field in the playoffs. But I was going to bring up one thing, Ted. You mentioned how you brought up Patricia and how things
Yeah.
are different with Dan Campbell and versus like Patricia. One thing that I did see that is a difference. Tracy Walker, the safety for the Lions defense, he came out and basically said, "This is a different culture. This is a different franchise." Like backing Dan Campbell, he's changing things. That this team is heading in a different direction. That's something that you didn't see under
Right.
basically any head coach. Maybe, some guys, Jim Caldwell, some guys
Yep.
would come out and say, they supported Jim Caldwell, but basically it was the other way around. Everyone was like, this dude, as far as whether it's Patricia, Marinelli, whoever, was like, this guy doesn't know how to be a head coach. So now you've got players saying like Dan Campbell knows what he's doing. We're going in the right direction. I think that's a positive if there's anything to take out of a 3-13-1 season.
So let me throw a hypothetical on the table. Let's say you guys both love Campbell, even though he's shown some clear problems in terms of just the idea of coaching football. Let's say that they go like 4 or 5 wins next year. Are you firing him? Let's say they have a similar season, a lot of maybe stuff to quote unquote build on heading into the off season. They go 3, 4, 5 wins, miss playoffs by a long shot, still like a top 10 draft pick. Are you guys bringing him back? Because I think that's probably the most likely scenario. Yeah. And it's just rare. I mean, we saw a Dolphins head coach get fired after winning 8 of those last 9 games. Like, I just don't think that there's a world where Campbell survives next year with the most likely scenario, which is another losing team.
That's a fair question, and you're probably right. The way things are in the NFL nowadays, if he only picks up one more win next year with all the draft choices he has, and the team coming back hopefully healthy,
yeah,
he'll definitely be on the hot seat. I turn it back to trying to be positive, trying to have good karma. I think this team, to Matt's point, with all the changes going on in their division, I really think they're set up. They could actually turn this around and be a 500 team or be knocking on the playoff door next year. I really think they can. The NFL, it's not like, college football. In the NFL, you can turn it around pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you get the right draft pick, and especially the big one, if Aaron Rodgers leaves town, that would help a lot.
That's huge.
So, yeah, if Aaron Rodgers goes, wherever, that would help a lot. I feel like they're like 3 stars away from being good. I don't think Jared Goff is the guy. He's serviceable. So, like, Goff can be solid. If they can get a legit number 1 receiver, get a couple stars on defense, like I think they could be sniffing the playoffs next year. Like, what if they end up with 5-6 wins, would that be enough to fire Campbell? I don't think it's enough to fire him. I think it's all about like, how do they look? Is he losing the locker room? Is he still making a bunch of boneheaded decisions? Stuff like that. But
well, I think the one word you had in your last diatribe is culture. And they have seemed to turn it around culture-wise, which we all agree really has been the biggest problem they've had in the whole Ford regime for the most part. I mean, if he's turned that culture around and they start believing in themselves and obviously get some talent on that roster, they can turn it around. I think so.
Good.
So what positions, what would you guys say is like, for me, I'm going defense all the way in this draft. I think we go defensive line with number 2 pick, if Hutchinson's on the board, I'm taking Hutchinson. I'm going, linebacker, safety, maybe even corner with the other 2 big, like high picks we have. I do like what you said, Matt. I'm never going to complain about drafting a wide receiver. But we just got Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round. I think that those guys kind of grow on trees a little bit. But the defensive pass rushers, They don't. And so that's where I'm going. I think we 100% stick to the defensive side of the ball. And I never say that. Maybe in the late first round, if Matt Corral or, maybe I don't think Kenny Pickett will be there, but somebody along those lines is there. Maybe take a quarterback that we can have sit behind Goff for 1 year and then hand him the reins. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hope they don't draft a quarterback in the first couple rounds just because they have so many other needs. They haven't had a legitimate, like, crazy TJ Watt type of game changer on their defense in what, Ted, since Chris Spielman?
Pretty much, yeah.
Maybe, Sue had a couple years,
right?
Yeah.
Sue, but like as a defensive tackle, you can only, unless you're Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald obviously is a freak, but that's what I'd like to see. Yes, so I would like to see a defensive end linebacker. Chris Spielman. Like the Lions just haven't had that guy on a defense that you're just like, holy crap, this dude is a freaking stud. Maybe since Sue, but so that's what I'd like to see. You got to go defense. And, I do still think receiver. If there's a stud receiver that you can pair with Hawkinson and St. Brown, I think you do that.
I think out of the first 4 picks, you got to go D. If you can slide in a decent receiver there, that's what you do offensively. I don't know what they got for money to spend on any free agents, but I think
a lot. I think they've got a lot.
I think Detroit might not look as bad to free agents as it did in the past just because of Dan Campbell.
Yep.
Really.
I don't hate the idea of honestly not drafting a quarterback. Let's just build a team almost like the Indianapolis Colts did. Build a team, and then let's just go sign a guy in the offseason. Yep. I don't hate that idea either.
Kind of like what the Titans did. Titans built a pretty good team and then went out and got Ryan Tannehill, and now they're like in the playoffs every year. So
wouldn't you put Tannehill in the same category as Goff? Goff,
he's way better.
Games too.
Way better.
Really? Okay.
What did you see from Goff this year? That dude, he can't move. The guy can't move in the pocket. He's got a noodle arm. He has some fight. I like Goff. I'm rooting for him, but it just, what more do you need to see?
I don't know. Last 5 games he's played, he's been injured for a couple of games, but last 5 games he's played, he hasn't looked that bad to me.
Serviceable.
I'll go with serviceable. I'll go, okay. Fair enough.
So you watched one game against the Green Bay Packers JV squad, and you are thinking this team is like the 85 Bears. I love it, man. You got the Lions hat on and everything.
I was gonna say, you see his hat. Look at that,
baby.
Where's the varsity jacket?
Since 57. Since 57.
I'm surprised you're not wearing the jacket too.
Oh no, I got to send that back. It's a little too tight.
Okay, that's a cool jacket though. I thought that was pretty cool.
It's awesome. All right. Anything else? Anything else on Lions stuff we want to get on the table, boys?
I don't know about the Lions, but so we kind of laid it out. Are we excited for the playoffs? There's some pretty cool matchups. Honestly, the biggest thing to me, I would think you guys maybe think the same thing, maybe a little different. I'm pulling for Matt Stafford.
Yeah,
it'd be cool to see Tom Brady win another one. It's always cool to see that. I hope Stafford just shuts up the doubters. I hope he goes out there and at least wins a couple games. It'd be cool to see him win a game or two in the playoffs, but should be fun.
Well, I'm with you. The Rams are my team. I'm watching all the way. They worry me a little bit because Stafford's getting into some of his habits he had with the Lions. Throwing silly interceptions at the wrong time.
Yeah.
It just worries me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pulling for the Rams. I don't know. Something about me just says that Matt Stafford's going to have a back-breaking pick six or a back-breaking interception that's going to kind of validate what everyone has been saying around Detroit for years, that you can't win a Super Bowl with him. I've been kind of enthralled with this Man in the Arena docuseries lately on. So I'm pulling for Tom Brady and the Bucs. Here's the thing about Tom Brady. Other than last year with the Buccaneers, every time he's been in a Super Bowl, it's been like a legendary game. So just get into the Super Bowl, and from there, all of the chips fall where they may. But the Titans are kind of a hell of a story, too. If Derrick Henry comes back and is lighting it up, that's the story of the generation right there. The guy takes all year off. I just saw a stat today. He was number 9 in rushing, despite only playing 8 games this year. If he came back and has some Derrick Henry type performances, that'd be cool to see, too.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be fun.
Should be fun.
And
I think we can all agree.
First weekend, what? Wild card weekend.
Playoffs are amazing, though, right? We can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
Yes. Wild card weekend, you can't beat it, really.
Yeah.
And this year we got a Monday night game.
I didn't see Have you guys? Are they doing a Manning cast for that? I didn't see that.
I'm
I
not
hope so.
100% sure.
I don't know. I mean, I think everybody's kind of pulling for it.
Yeah.
Ted, are you still like kind of the big like you watch Manning cast every week?
Every week when they're on,
Yeah,
for
It's
sure.
fantastic.
Absolutely. And they added to it the last time. Obviously, you know, they had some softball stuff for Roger Goodell,
Right.
but I think I tweeted it, you know, hey, the Monday night crew, they got the regular crew, nothing wrong with them. They're good, but give me Manning and Snoop Dogg all season long on Monday night, and I'm
Yeah.
there every week, and that'd be huge ratings too.
Yeah.
It would.
Snoop
Quick
knows
before
Snoop
we
knows his
sign off.
football.
Quick before we sign off on the NFL, kind of along those lines. So last Saturday for that Week 18, Herbie and Fowler called an NFL game. Where I mean, we talk about broadcasters and stuff a lot on this podcast. Where do you guys stand on that? Herbie and Fowler are fantastic, but calling an NFL game, do you like that? Should they stick to college, or what do you think?
I love it. They're the best. They really are. Regardless of whether it's college, high school, NFL, give me those two all day. I mean, you never can go wrong with them. Now, there are occasional times where I do like the Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt pairing, mostly because you got Gus Johnson, who's from Detroit. You have Joel Klatt, who loves Michigan. So I'm never going to complain about them calling a Michigan game. But no, I think they really are the best of the best. John Madden, from everything I've seen, his All Madden documentary, he seemed like he was really one of a kind. But no, I think Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler are in a world of their own, really.
Yeah, they're really good. They could do NFL without missing a beat, but I like them right where they're at in college football and helping out once in a while in an NFL game. But they are as good as it gets for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, I think we're done with this portion, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Sounds
sir.
good.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Our first excursion here on a video portion. I want to thank our sponsors: Crow Real Estate and Auction, Rivals Tap House and Grill, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, and Z92.5 The Castle. So long, everybody.